All right, we're live. Welcome to Pej's Recovery Corner. We are here today. This is a podcast that focuses on all things recovery or lack thereof, depending on who's on and how you roll. But today, my special guest is Casey Gooding. Casey, welcome to the corner. Good to have
Thank
you
you
here.
so much for having me today, my friend.
I've been
Good
wanting to
see
have you on here for a little while now. So this is a recovery podcast. We like to delve into your past and see who you are, where you're from, where you were born, and then work our way up and see, what happened.
Yeah.
And then what happened after that, how the recovery portion works into your life. So who are you?
Well, my name's Casey Gooding, and I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is 11/29/2012. I have a sponsor here locally. His name's Christian S., wonderful man in St. Clemente. Helped save my life.
Awesome.
I also have a home group called Black Friend Only, and we meet on Saturday mornings in San Juan Capistrano.
Awesome. So you are originally from what state?
I am originally from the great state of Michigan. I'm from the Lansing, East Lansing area of Michigan, which is the capital city.
Okay.
And I know that you just frequented the Midwest as well.
Yes,
and,
it was very cold.
You were not used to that weather.
Actually, I grew up in Utah, but there was a different type of cold in Utah.
It is a different kind of cold in Minnesota and Michigan.
Correct? Yes.
Get those winds coming off the Windy City across the lake.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of snow, a lot of seasons. I had the privilege of going back to Michigan just a few short weeks ago, participating in a lot of recovery-related events, meeting with other professionals within the state.
Nice.
Hosting a sober tailgate at the Michigan State game that was awesome. So if people are watching the podcast today, I know my friend Duke Rumley at Sober AF Entertainment will be hosting another tailgate, sober tailgate. Sober AF, and
okay.
it stands for exactly what you think it would be.
Okay, good. I like that.
They'll be hosting a tailgate at the University of Arizona versus Arizona State game in Tempe this weekend. So, great opportunity for people in recovery that are looking to go out and experience college football amongst other events. To get onto their website and see what they're up to.
I love it. Yeah. I love it. So, growing up in Michigan, did you have any siblings or anything like that in your childhood?
I come from, a suburban middle-class family, as one would say.
Okay.
Parents are still married, living happily here in California and in Florida currently.
Okay.
I have a younger brother and a younger sister, neither of which was afflicted with the disease of alcoholism or chemical dependency in the same way that I was.
Okay. And growing up, like when did you was it just alcohol? Was there other stuff in the mix?
It was mostly drugs for me. Alcohol always played an exhilarating role in my life from probably the time in maybe about 8th grade, started smoking pot, ditching class, doing all the stuff that young kids that are recreationally using substances are doing. And it certainly took a deeper role in high school. With use of harder drugs, participating in rave culture, all sorts of different things. I mean, it was a very
so the raves
thing.
Were happening then.
Yeah, I was a graduate of high school in 1998, so if that ages me just a touch, but it was quite a thing and a culture for our area back in the 90s. Absolutely.
Okay, so. In starting off with drugs, I mean, was there alcohol in the mix too? I mean, were you
Yeah,
drinking?
There was always alcohol.
There was always alcohol. It was essential.
Everything always started with a Budweiser.
Okay, all right.
So nothing ever went very much farther without that first drink.
Right.
But once I had the first drink, it was game on, and I was pretty much up for anything.
Okay.
And so in my younger years, cocaine and marijuana and rave type drugs such as ketamine or ecstasy were, favorites.
Right.
And as I continued my use, the introduction of opiates became extremely relevant in my life and became the overwhelming priority for me. Which led to, my bottom essentially.
So let's back up for a second here. So when it comes to raves, I mean, I did a lot of raving.
Oh, yeah.
Here in Los Angeles and California, there was a lot of stimulants in the mix. Obviously, with ketamine and ecstasy and probably some meth in the mix or cocaine and things like that. These are uppers.
Yep.
This is the stuff that's supposed to stimulate us, make us happy, make us go out and do the love drugs and enjoy ourselves, be in that dance culture and dance type of mood to where we're having a lot of fun. How did it switch to opiates? Like why opiates?
Yeah, so in addition, ecstasy was kind of this thing where the main part of the drug was the MDMA,
Mm-hmm.
and they would cut these pills with multiple different kinds of
Sure.
things, and
Yeah.
sometimes meth would be a part of that, and
Mhm.
sometimes Adderall, and sometimes
Heroin
may be a part of it.
Yes.
And in all the times, I enjoyed the ecstasy that would provide me that euphoric feeling,
Mhm.
somewhere right between life and death.
Sure.
And that's where I like to,
Not really
flatline at.
not really knowing it's between life and death.
Yeah, we're not really knowing. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And
yeah.
so, probably from before I knew it was going to be part of my, everyday life. I enjoyed the effect that was produced on the opposite side of a stimulant aspect,
Mhm.
actually. So
And
much later on,
was this in your early 20s or was
this was in the early 20s.
Okay.
Yeah. And then later on in my late 20s, that's when the introduction of Oxycontin became relevant in our society and certainly in my life.
And how did it become? Was it introduced into your life through prescription medication, or were you getting it?
No, it was a
from
social
people?
aspect of my life. It
Uh-huh.
was something that people were doing recreationally.
Right.
And
Like Oxy 80s.
Yep. I mean, it started with Percocets and Vicodins and
Mhm.
just popping a couple of those and having some drinks and feeling a little better.
Right.
And then, it progressed to Oxy 20s, 40s, 80s, right? And, to the point where we were crushing them and snorting them. And
Ever smoking them during that time?
yeah, smoking them, ended up shooting them, as my disease progressed.
So the idea of smoking a pill, like, did somebody just say, have you ever tried smoking this? Is that, I mean, why would you do that?
Of course. I mean, any way that you can utilize a substance to get a deeper desired effect was something that we would always be interested in.
So
right?
plopping them wasn't working as well as if you were to crush them and snort them or to
Smoke them.
them or eventually intravenously shoot them.
Correct.
Now, were you ever afraid of needles? I mean, did you just think at that point, I've gone this far, I want to really feel like the major effect that's produced by this particular drug, and so I will now shoot myself with it?
Yeah. So, it's just really was part of the progression for me, right? I had reached a point where obviously this habit is becoming more and more expensive. The effect that's being produced is less and less and less. And so I have to find new ways to introduce the drug to my bloodstream that will create the desired effect that I want from this drug.
Interesting. Okay. So, I mean, there's some people that are totally just afraid of needles. They would never stick a needle in their body, right? So let me back up real quick. So throughout your 20s, were you? I mean, when you speak, like, you're educated. You sound educated. Was there any college, any university?
So, there was a brief period of time between the ages of 22 and 28.
Yes.
That substance abuse had not taken the role that it had in the ages of 28 to 34.
Sure.
Right.
You were more
I spent my
partying.
I spent my 18th birthday in rehab, and
okay, so rehab was already something that had happened in the end of your adolescence.
Yeah, at the end of my adolescence, I spent my 18th birthday in rehab, and it was a futile effort, right? I mean,
what happened that you ended up there?
I left treatment, and it was homecoming at high school, and it was time to start doing what I was accustomed to, right?
But why were you sent to treatment? Were you drinking too much?
As a result of my action and behavior, and my family's concern for my well-being is why I went.
So
there was a lot of behavioral issues associated with my drinking and drug use.
Okay.
At an early age, which led to issues in my classes, issues with my peers, issues in my relations.
Okay.
Issues with my family.
So school, as far as school, even in your high school years, you were declining, like not doing well because you were partying?
Yes.
I know you. You're my friend. Like, you're so well put together to hear this. Like, I can't imagine it. But I mean, I understand, in those certain times, like, we all had fun, right? To a certain extent. At least we thought we were having fun. Our families weren't having fun with who we were becoming or who we were at the time. So they put you in rehab, and that was short-lived?
That was short-lived, and then I kind of responded during an age. I mean, I felt kind of a freedom after I had moved on from living with my family and moved on from high school and moved into college and, I had essentially at that point in time, I had a group of peers that all partied and used drugs in the same way as I did. And we were able to make it by, we had jobs and we went to our classes and we did enough to get by. And, then I met a girl and, we ended up getting married and having children and, buying the house, having the cars, taking on more responsibility in my life, which didn't allow much of the uh, substance abuse that I was accustomed to at that point in time.
Mhm.
But what I recognized is, I still want this party to keep going. And the woman that I married wants to have a family. Right. And so the priorities were extremely different within the marriage, which in the end causes, a divorce because of my action again, my inability to control my drinking, my inability to stop once I start. And, to be honest about it, my ex-wife has a father that was absolutely an alcoholic, and likely she wasn't going to stand by and watch her husband go through that. So in hindsight, she really made the right decision then. And that was very difficult for me to understand, but I fully understand that today.
Great. So that period of time between 22 and 28, educated?
Yes, so I am a hospitality business major.
Mhm.
I went to the local community college in Lansing. I worked for Michigan State University. I attended classes there. But again, my substance abuse did not allow me at that point in time to graduate with a degree from Michigan State University. But I do, I'm educated in that aspect of an associate's degree.
Okay. Now, down the line, you became a chef?
I did. I worked as a chef at Michigan State. I was deeply passionate about that. Through my time, in my early 20s, I worked as a corporate management. I was doing training at stores throughout the country for a corporate restaurant chain. I worked as a kitchen manager, employing a lot of employees.
Right.
And then I wanted to take kind of a break from that. So I got a job at Michigan State University, which was kind of the dream job. You're in a union, you're working 2 to 10 each day, working at the 4-star restaurant on campus. I really enjoyed that experience that I had there. It allowed me to have a lot of creativity in what I did in my work. And it was stable, structured, and, it certainly paid well in the time that I was there. So I really enjoyed that experience of being a chef there at Michigan State.
And how old were you during that time?
I was between the ages of 24 and 28 at that time.
Okay, so then down the line, when you started to get into the opiates, was that your demise?
It was, as stated previously, suffer from a progressive and fatal disease. There were overdoses. There were
overdoses from shooting it, from snorting it, smoking it.
All of it.
All of it.
Yeah. In different instances, there were relapses and overdoses that caused overdose in some very, very serious consequences for me. I recall one time, being on vacation with my family near Traverse City, Michigan, leaving my family for work responsibilities to get back to work, driving through Toledo, Ohio, take some pills orally, don't feel the effects of them, take more pills. And the next thing you know, I'm in an OD in a hospital. I'm looking up when I wake up. I've got a breathing machine, a catheter in, and I'm strapped down to a bed. And I find out that I'm in Toledo, Ohio, and, I know my parents and family are about 5-6 hours away from me. And I look over to my mom's there. I'd been overdosed and in a coma for about 25 hours at that point in time. And I was in that hospital in a psych ward for a week, figuring out how to walk again and rehabilitating and physical therapy, only to find myself short time after that, within a week or two, going back to using.
To doing it again.
Doing it all over again.
And as a person in their young adulthood during that time when those episodes would happen, did the thought ever cross your mind or occur to you that this is becoming a problem? I should probably or maybe clean up and get sober, or was that not even a figment of your imagination?
Well, I think there is certainly that progression that you go through where you're in complete denial of this being a problem.
Right.
I think the first time that I went to Alcoholics Anonymous or any 12-step fellowship, I my back was against the wall. I had to admit to my family, hey, I've got a problem with this substance. And I went into a hospitalized detox. They took us to, AA, NA, all the 12-step fellowships. And I remember sitting there and looking around the room and saying, I'm not like these people. I still have two cars in the garage. I've got a wife, got kids, all the stuff. I haven't lost these.
You haven't lost all the
but then I also
stuff.
remember that journey of going in and out of the 12-step programs and then finding myself in a position where by the time I came back, I felt that there was no way a person like me could find and maintain recovery, right? That I had reached a point that I was far worse than anybody that was in that room.
Right.
In a short period of time. It was riveting.
Okay, so how old were you how many times did you go to treatment throughout your life?
Well, I went to the episode of care when I was 18, and there were probably, an additional 3 times where I actually went to residential treatment. There were a lot of
This is throughout your 20s?
Oh, this is, at age 28, 29, that's when I start using Oxycontin. And then my life was really, really, really bad until I turned 35. And that's when I found recovery here in California.
35.
Yep. 35.
You're really lucky you survived throughout those late 20s.
I'm 100% sure that if, my family hadn't made arrangements and supported me in the way that was required for me to recover, that I would be dead. There's probably a lot of people, if they follow me on Facebook or Instagram or however we're showing this, and that will see this. And, there's a lot of my friends that, I used to run with in Michigan that are no longer here. Right?
They all passed away.
They all passed away.
Yeah.
And if you were to see me in my engagements with them, I was always the one that was far worse than everybody else.
Kind of amazing.
Yeah, I was the one who said, were people that had really bad substance abuse problems said, Casey, you're really bad. You need help.
You taught them all.
Yeah. It was. And I was the first, one out of the people that I, engaged with that really had the opportunities that I've enjoyed, that really come as a result of, my parents' commitment before mine. My parents made changes that promoted my change. And
speak about that.
Yeah. So, like when it all came down, we've kind of covered what it's looked like up until that point. I'm 34 years old. I'm barely keeping a roof over my head. I'm a daily IV heroin user. I'd been in and out of indigent detoxes and programs over the last 3-4 years. I would go into 12-step programs, get a sponsor, work the first 3 steps, stay sober to 3 to 5 months. And life would get really, really good for me.
Right.
I would start having my relationships back with my family. I'd be the model employee. I'd have, see my kids. I would, restore hope in my relations with family members and loved ones. And, it's kind of a double-edged sword for me, right? Because on one hand, I can recover very quickly and good things can happen and life can turn all the way around in a short period of time. But on the other side of that is I can burn my life down extremely fast as a result of that first initial decision. And without doing the work that, we do in the program, I really didn't have any defense against the first drink or the first drug.
Right.
Like I said, it always started with a Budweiser for me. So what happens to a guy who has a problem with heroin that doesn't think he has a problem with alcohol? Hey, you want to go have a drink after work? Oh yeah, absolutely. I can have a drink.
It's just drinking. It's
just
not heroin.
Yep. So I go and have 2 drinks and then I start thinking in my head. And it's like, can I go back to that 12-step room where everybody expects me to be sober? Right? What are they going to think of me? I'm a loser, this and this and that. Let me just make this call. Right. And then I'm, shooting heroin and I'm smoking crack cocaine and, I'm engaged in illicit sexual activities with all sorts of seedy people. Right. And I can guarantee you at that point in time, nobody's tipping their hat to me like they talk about in the big book. Right. It's not something a gentleman would do. And so I would find myself in succession going through these relapses with restored hope and, not doing the work that was required to recover. And so finally, I had reached a point where I had been on a run for about a year and My parents were living here in Southern California. And
They had moved out to California.
they did, because my dad worked in the auto industry in Michigan. That's a pretty big manufacturing industry, worked for General Motors.
Yes.
And he came out here and started working for an electric car company. And, is it odd or is it God? He came to an area that was extremely saturated, a lot of recovery here, a lot of great treatment programs,
Sure.
a lot of people that, families that have, walked with their family members and recovered from this disease. And so they got engaged with another family that was at their church. And, my family sat down and they said, if our son dies, do we honestly believe that we can sleep at night knowing that we've done every single thing we could to help him? Right. And right in there in that moment, they just said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like if he passes away, which is highly likelihood, we'll never be able to live with ourselves if we don't do something right now. And so they got involved. They found another parishioner who had a son who was a year sober, who went through a treatment program here in Southern California. And they went to these treatment programs and they talked to the staff there, and they, toured the treatment programs. They saw the facilities, they met the people, and they made an investment in their son. Right. And they took direction from those treatment professionals, and they got involved in Al-Anon, and they participated in every family meeting, and they made hard, uncomfortable decisions that I didn't like, but were in an interest to support me with what I needed rather than what I wanted. Because what I want is to live on that line of life and death, right? In complete oblivion, not knowing how severe my condition is. And so all these changes that they had made provided them an ample opportunity and an ask where they could say, Casey, we are now willing to help you, and we're no longer going to do anything that hurts you, but we'll do anything to help you. Right. Which to hurt me meant, we'll help you pay your rent. We'll pay your car insurance. We'll, when you need us to bail you out, we'll bail you out. When you need us to fly you somewhere. We'll do all these things. We're no longer going to do those things.
Good.
But we will support you in your recovery in any way we can. We've identified a good opportunity for you. And so I'm sitting there in Michigan at 34 years old, and I'm saying, well, do I go on to the bitter end, or do I accept this help that my family is providing for me? And, my decision at that point was the bitter end is, I'm going to end up dead, which probably would be the best option for me. I'm going to continue living like this. I'm going to go to jail because I'm going to be doing criminal activity and I'm going to get caught for it.
Right.
Or I'm just going to be institutionalized. I'll be in that psych ward. I'll be in, some form of state care, as a result of my, alcoholism and drug dependency.
Sure.
So I accepted that gift that they provided. I found myself on a plane on November 28th, 2012, here to California.
You came to treatment. Did you stay sober after that treatment stay? Okay, good. So you had mentioned as far as them making an investment in what did you say? In
me.
In you.
Yeah.
The same thing happened for me. I was in a treatment program, and my mom had finally come on board. She did the whole Al-Anon thing and all that stuff too. But I remember that she had told me that the counselor said this is the best investment that you could make for your child, for your son, for him and his future, and as far as finances and things like that, rather than dump all this money into him and all these other things that he keeps doing or taking advantage of. This is where he can get his life back, and truly, that's what happened for me. So we have a lot in common when it comes to that. I really like that you brought that up. And you stayed in treatment for how long during that time?
I stayed in treatment for 60 days at a residential level of care. So show up at the airport, get off the airplane, parents pick me up, take me directly to treatment. Sitting in front of the treatment center out in the patio, smoking a cigarette, because that's what we did back then.
Yes.
Not too many people, none of us smoke cigarettes anymore.
They're all vaping.
Yeah, we're all vaping. Sitting there, and right in front of me is my dad, and he's a man's man. He's leader of the family, and he's crying. And these are real tears that are coming down, right? And I don't have a lot of ability to feel, or, the reality is kind of fleeting at that point in time. But
yes.
I do remember right then and there that, him crying and telling me that he wanted me to have a life worth living. Right. And then we went in to do the intake, and I had a clear understanding of what they were, paying for me to be there.
Mhm.
Right. And so I
So
recognize
they were paying cash. This wasn't insurance.
this wasn't insurance,
They really were making a cash
Oh
investment.
yeah, they were. Yeah.
Okay.
And, for me, I felt that was a lot of money for my parents to pay.
Sure.
Right. And so right then and there, I said, not only in this aspect of this financial investment, because that's really secondary, but I knew then and there that I could no longer tell myself the lie. And the lie for me always was that this addiction is hurting me, but it's not hurting other people in my life.
Mhm.
Right. I get it. It's hurting me. Don't have the opportunities. I'm 140 pounds, wet and wearing boots, physically, mentally, spiritually. I'm bankrupt.
Mhm.
But, I can rationalize and justify my action and behavior that doesn't hurt other people in my own sick, twisted mind.
Mhm.
Right then and there, when that game was over, I recognized right then and there that I had a responsibility to myself and people that loved me and cared about me, that I was to take this opportunity that was, given to me and make the most of it.
I love that. I think it's wonderful. So now at this point, within that 60-day stay, obviously they're sending you to those meetings.
Oh yeah.
So you're reintroduced to the good old AA.
Right back to it. And I wasn't opposed to 12 steps.
Right.
When
you'd already had some experience within the past.
I did, and I saw a lot of people that were able to dedicate their life to the program
Mm-hmm.
that had happy, usefully whole lives.
Mm-hmm.
I had reached the point that I just didn't know how it would work for me. Right. And I never really was in a position where I was going to be committed to do the work.
Mm-hmm. And, you were 34 at this time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So interestingly enough, obviously, people who go to treatment usually are sent to 12-step meetings. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of them. So there might be some smart recovery or some refuge recovery and things like that some people ask to go to, or some places that have like a holistic track or something might introduce that idea too. But I know that anybody can go into the 12-step world, and if they really give it their all and get honest with themselves and take the 12 steps, they could change their lives. I mean, it changes countless people's lives. We know that.
Change your life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now that you were getting plugged back into that community, obviously, and it was probably a lot nicer to be in California as opposed to like Michigan and doing this process. But was there a point in the beginning of your recovery where you thought, I want to use one more time, or I got another run in me? Or did you make an absolute decision right from the get? Because you had mentioned, like, you knew this was a golden opportunity, obviously, that your parents had presented to you. Did you just decide, I'm doing this 100%?
This time was different than all the rest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really truly was. I mean, all the rest of the time is the overwhelming obsession that I just want to use one more time,
Mm-hmm.
that they won't find out. I'll only do it this day. I'll do these things. F it, I don't care. All those lies that I would continue to sell myself, they didn't happen this time. I was really lucky. I went through the detox process. Then they started taking us to meetings, and
Mm-hmm.
they'd take us to a men's meeting, and then they'd take us to a CA meeting, then they'd take us to an NA meeting, and then they'd take us to a speaker meeting, and they'd take us to Celebrate Recovery. So they would get you affiliated with multiple different aspects.
So you could choose which one you want to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, there was a little small men's meeting in Capistrano Beach, California at this point in time. And it's like 40 guys, and we're meeting in a preschool room, and you had to get there a half hour early, and you had to smoke like way away because you can't smoke on the church property.
Sure.
And the house manager would be like, okay, guys, we're going to AA tonight. That means you're alcoholic. This is how you identify this and this and that. And we got there early. And
they were teaching you etiquette.
They were teaching us 12-step etiquette.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And, we'd get there early, and we'd save our seats, and we'd start talking to the people that were there. And, I went for 1 week, and I met a few of the people, and then I came back the next week, and I shake those guys' hands, and they say, hey, Casey, I'm glad you're here. It was good to meet you last week. Have a seat. Coffee's hot. Cookies are in the kitchen.
Nice.
It's like, wow. So I remember sitting in that meeting, and, by this point in time, I had an idea of, okay, it's not going to be at these other meetings where I'm going to find the person who's going to help me. Because also at the treatment program, they're saying, hey, not only are you going to go to 12-step meetings, but you need to find a sponsor to do this 12-step work with.
Yes.
And so I remember sitting there, I'm like, man, I got to find a sponsor at this meeting. Now, mind you, most of those people in that meeting are in long-term recovery. You know,
Mhm.
they're in there driving their BMWs and Mercedes Benz up there.
Right.
You know, they're talking about their life with their children and their families and their jobs and all these things that seem so foreign to me and
Mhm.
so far away. But most of all, they talked about a spiritual solution in recovery. And I could tell by looking at these men and looking at them and them looking at me in my eyes
Mhm.
that they were for real, that they were not joking, and this was not some lie that they were telling me.
Right.
And so in that meeting that evening, you know, probably December 5th or something like that, I raised my hand in that meeting and I just said, "My name's Casey. I'm an alcoholic."
Mhm.
I said, "I have absolutely no clue how to stay sober."
Mm.
I was like, in fact, if I knew how to stay sober, I would not be here with you guys right now.
Right.
You know, she would have fixed me. The church would have fixed me. You know, having this job would have fixed me. Seeing a therapist once a week would fix me. The fact of the matter is, I've tried all these things and nothing has worked for me.
Mhm.
I've tried them over and over and over and over again.
Nothing.
And so AA became the last thing that I was willing to do, but
Mhm.
the only thing that ever worked.
I love it. You got a couple of people that, let's see here. We've got Aaron Spar. Casey is a man that I've learned so much from, but just watching and listening to him. Aaron just took 5 years
He
today.
did. Happy birthday, Aaron.
From raves to sweater vests. Okay, love the new scenery. And let's see here. Casey is half there. It's
Halfway there. They're using my lines against me now, aren't they?
Yes, they are. All right, and then Curtis.
Aaron's halfway there. He just got 5 years.
Curtis says big loves to both of you. So let's get into it. So obviously, like, you took this thing by the horns. Like, AA became
I
a way
had
of
no
life.
other. I had no other options.
I love it. I love it. This is what I love about you, because I know the group that you're part of, right?
Yeah.
They're good men.
Uh-huh.
They're very good people. Like, they're by the book. Like,
Black print only.
no nonsense.
Mhm.
My type of recovery, right? And I also watch you. You're admirable. The things that you do in the recovery community stand out. They really stand out a lot. You have worked for a few different centers in the past. You've done excellent work, exceptional work. You're known for that, right? You present yourself very well. You're not the person that had a bad reputation when you were out there,
No,
right?
in fact, I went from raves to sweater vests.
Exactly, just like you said. But you have this reputation in here too, where you are known to be a stand-up individual that really, truly, it's all about your blood, sweat, and tears. You pour this into what you do. Right now, you're currently working for a place by the name of, go ahead,
Burning Tree Programs.
Okay, and
is
what
where
is
I work.
and
Yep.
what is Burning Tree all about?
So Burning Tree Programs has been around since 1999. We care for the chronic relapser and their families.
Okay,
These would be individuals that are treatment resistant, people that have been to multiple treatment programs and not been able to maintain sufficient recovery. Some of the story that I've told here today has to do with the family making changes to promote the wellness of their loved one.
Mhm.
And that's something that spoke to me about Burning Tree Programs. We're really we're really committed to supporting the families and making a systemic change that will create an environment in which the loved one can recover, right? And so this is a trying process with our program. Our program is a long-term, authentic treatment program. So
based out of where?
Based out of Kaufman, Texas, is
Okay.
where our staple program is. Our clients are doing 8 to 14 months of residential treatment on a 2,000-acre ranch in Texas.
So the majority of your clients are chronic relapsers, people that have just found it hard to stay sober, countless treatment episodes or centers that they've gone to. They just can't stay sober, right?
Can't stay sober given sufficient reason.
Yeah.
We're talking the most intelligent, the most highly manipulative, the cunning, the baffling cases, the extremely difficult, challenging cases, chronic level alcoholics and drug abusers. Yeah.
When you're speaking with their families, hold on, Richard actually was saying, once again, so proud of your guests, courage from the heart. When you're speaking to their families, Does it bring up old stuff for you?
It does. I mean, I get an opportunity almost daily to utilize my experience, strength, and hope to
You
promote
self-disclose.
hope. Yeah,
Yeah.
to support people in their journeys.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how many times I've sat on airplanes and got to talking to people, and they're like, "What do you do?" And I tell them, and they're like, "Wow, I know somebody who needs some help from that."
Yes.
I feel like in today's day and age, somebody out there that is suffering from mental health or substance abuse, and
Probably more than ever, especially
more than ever.
The pandemic
more
has
than
set
ever.
a lot of people going in different directions.
Absolutely.
People that didn't even possibly have alcoholism became alcoholics because it became something that, being confined within the
or
house.
at the very least, they've had an unhealthy relationship with the substance.
Sure.
Right? We wouldn't necessarily deem them alcoholic,
Right.
but they probably could use some therapeutic clinical support to align with them with their morals and goals.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why Burning Tree? Why did you end up going there?
Yeah. People ask me that a lot.
Yeah.
In my previous employment, I worked hand in hand with a good friend of mine. His name's Brooke McKenzie.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Burning Tree graduate ranch alumni.
Mm-hmm.
We supported a lot of families with entry into Burning Tree in my previous position at New Method Wellness.
Mm-hmm.
I had an opportunity to see individuals who otherwise may not be present and living right now.
Mm-hmm.
Go to their program, have an overwhelming, significant change, be able to be in a position where they're living their life with integrity, honesty, and seeing a complete family systems change within their family.
Mm-hmm.
Now, today I still get text messages and calls from these parents that we supported that are saying, "Casey, thanks so much for helping us find Burning Tree because it completely changed our lives." And then every few months it's, here's little Jimmy's baby girl. We're just celebrating the birth of our grandchild as a result of his commitment to recovery,
right,
and the experience provided at Burning Tree. We get to celebrate these moments now, right? And so I had reached a point in my career in behavioral health care where I'm privileged to do a lot of things for our community. I've got wonderful friends that work in our field throughout the country. Here in California, I'm committed to professional associations nationally. I sit on the NADAC Public Policy Committee. I do
talk about that a little bit. What is NADAC?
So that's the National Association of Alcohol and Drug Counselors. And so, in 2019, a group of us went to Washington, D.C. to do some advocacy at the National Association of Addiction Treatment Providers Conference. And, it was a privilege to go and represent our organization and engage with the field of providers that were there and professionals supporting people across the country.
Sure.
But in addition to just the conference, we had a National Hill Day where we could go and make appointments with our senators and House of Representatives and talk about a set of issues that were affecting behavioral health care in our community's ability to enroll in services with providers.
Okay.
Right. So now stepping out into a broader thing about what can we do for our community. Right. So obviously we're in the midst of a pandemic. We just talked about an overwhelming amount of people that need support for mental health, for substance abuse, amongst other behavioral health issues. And we still have a long way to go when it comes to advocating for those individuals that don't even know that they need that support right now.
Yes.
So we were talking about, improving mental health parity law. We were talking about the opioid pandemic, and the overwhelming efforts the government had taken specifically for the opioid epidemic. But at the same time, we need to look at addiction as a whole, right? Opioid epidemic certainly can be a large portion of that. I fit within that, but not everybody does.
Right.
And we shouldn't look at just the substances, but we should look at this overwhelming issue that we have as a country. We also talked about improving the ethics within our profession. And, since that point in time when we went and advocated for those things, in California, we passed SB 855, which improved our mental health parity enforcement in our state. We also passed body brokering laws here in the state of California, which improved our ethics. And then we also, since that point in time, were able to allocate a lot of financial resource from our government and state for facilities and for behavioral health care in our communities.
Mhm.
So they were all wins, So last year in 2020,
And this is as a result of you guys going to Washington. Was that the onset? Was that what began this?
that was the result. I believe that our efforts in Washington helped.
Mhm.
And I believe that our continued efforts from that point forward have helped.
Great.
And so essentially what it did was show us as a professionals community that if we are invested in seeing a difference within our community and we are willing to designate a small bit of our time to advocate for patients' rights, amongst other things that affect behavioral health care agencies
Mhm.
within our country, certainly here in the state and locally, then we can find great success and we can be a part of that charge and we can participate in legislation that affects behavioral health care communities. So at that point in time, after experiencing that, a group of us came back and created the California Alliance for State Advocacy here in California.
Mhm.
And we just celebrated our first year of
That's
being in an organization.
CASA.
Yep, CASA.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got Facebook and Instagram, and we've got our own website up, and we've got a service board that sits at each of our meetings. And essentially what we do is a monthly networking meeting where we can bring professionals together throughout the community. And most of the time, our efforts are focused on educating our membership on the importance of advocacy, nonprofit associations, and engaging in relationships with legislators. So we've got great goals and ambitions over this next year with that. And again, we just celebrated our first year of that. And our next meeting is going to be on December 10th
Mm-hmm.
in Ladera Ranch. And we'll be having an addiction professionals comedy show
Mm-hmm.
that will feature our friend Benji Buchanan
Mm-hmm.
from the Gooden Center.
Yes.
And another comedian, Aaron Patrick, who will be performing for the professionals there. So it'll be a lot of fun.
So you're carrying the message a lot more than just in a 12-step community.
Yeah, I mean, I started with this aspect of being comfortable in the group.
Mm-hmm.
I started sponsoring people at about 10 months sober.
Mm-hmm.
Got a bunch of great guys that I sponsor now that have changed their life as a result of this commitment.
Sure.
They're all, getting married, having kids, having great jobs. We're talking about guys that, were in treatment, came here with a suitcase.
Right.
So it's been amazing to see that difference. And then, my sponsor was always really wanted me to have area service commitments. And so I became accustomed to doing things in a community level. And then when I started working in behavioral health care, I got to know the field. I was certainly put in positions that I earned positions, I guess you could say,
Mm-hmm.
that put me in a public spotlight here in Orange County. And then we took that into a national thing. And, I get the privilege of supporting the community in AA and in our field. And, I'm a firm believer of what we can do together, we can do better, right? Just like in AA, like, no one person is more important than the community.
Yes.
And, we really need a community of providers that are committed to working together to ensure that the overwhelming need of the community is met. Right. And so as a result of all those kind of things, I recently accepted a position on NADAC's Public Policy Board. It's a national board. I also serve as a membership committee member for NATAP. So those are some fun volunteer positions that I get the privilege of doing. And it works in the same way as AA, right? Like you asked me to show up, we put a time together, I show up.
That's right.
You asked me to speak at a meeting. If I'm here and I'm available, I'll be there. Right. I get the privilege of sharing that message with people today. It's not something that I have to do. It's definitely something that I get to do. Right. And what I think of is, man, I'm grateful that there were people to do that there for me. Right. There's no amount of work that I can do that will ever be able to repay what AA's done for me, or even the industry that I work in has done for me. Right. There's all sorts of guys that have been doing this thing in the industry for 20, 30 years that I'm good friends with today that give me their knowledge for fun and for free. Yeah. There's all sorts of guys in AA that have been sober for 35, 40 years that I go to meetings with on a weekly basis that have shown me how to act and engage as a man in recovery. Right. That I get to teach those things to other people, and that I get to teach those to my industry peers from my industry, position. So
Married now?
married, yes.
Kids?
Married 5 years. I have 2 children from my previous marriage.
Mm-hmm.
They are 19 and 17. My son is in his first year of college.
Mm-hmm.
He's a big motocross guy, so he's going to school to get accreditations on different mechanical training.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter will be the one that breaks the bank. She is interested in being a psychiatrist. So I'm excited about that for her. And, she's applying for schools right now. And, I'm going to be supporting her in doing that. My wife of 5 years is Haley, and she lives here with me and our dog Sparty in Dana Point in Lantern District. And, each year continues to get better. Love her dearly. Love her family. Everybody that meets her loves her. So
how cool. This is what I want to say, but we'll close out with this. This is amazing to me that you were once did you do heroin too? Or was it just, IV opiate addict that has taken it so far to going and advocating, to lobbies, to people in Washington, and completely transform your life. You're one of the ones that a lot of people call me for help. They will often ask me for a connection to somebody, whether it be for mental health or addiction or whatever, nationally, right? I get a lot of calls. You're the one of the ones I can always turn to and ask you, do you know an outpatient in like South Carolina or something like that? And within seconds, within minutes, I will get a response. And you don't know like how many people's lives you're actually affecting and touching, because I'll make a connection with those people, and then that person goes there, and that's because you've got this reach of like. And I know a lot of effort's gone into this. You're definitely a person that I look up to. I enjoy our friendship. I love how serious you took your recovery. You just took 8 years. You know what really stands out to me more than anything is it was 8 years, correct?
I got 9 years on next Monday.
Oh, 9 years.
Yeah, but I got to make it till next Monday.
Well, you will make it till next Monday.
I'm pretty sure.
I had an old timer one time tell me when I told him, if I make it to this day, he said, no, when you make it.
When I make it, yes.
So 9 years has it really been that fast that this went by? Didn't you take a chip and your dad, like you gave it to your dad?
Every year I give my chip to my dad. Yes.
Has it been a year almost?
Golly, because I did that when I spoke at Monks and Drunks, is it?
Yeah.
It was a year ago.
Has it been a whole year already?
Golly.
My God.
This goes by quick, doesn't it?
I can't.
So I got to tell the story since we're here.
Sure,
right?
tell the story.
So obviously what we've talked about today, everybody has an understanding of, what my family means to me and the commitment that they made to ensure that I could have this opportunity in recovery.
Right.
And so each year that I go to my meetings and I take my chips and I put on a suit and I share my experience of strength and hope.
Yes.
They give you a chip for that, right?
Yes.
And so each year that I get a chip, I send that chip to my dad, or I'd give it to him if he's present right there. And each year he really looks forward to that. And no matter where my dad is, I think he's up in Carson somewhere today,
right.
But tomorrow he'll be in Florida or Michigan, or he's been in Beijing, China, or Germany, or wherever it is.
Right.
Everywhere he goes, that chip is in his pocket from the time he wakes up and puts his jeans on to the time he goes to sleep.
He's always got it.
He's always got it. He could be walking by right here and, he'd show it to you. And it's probably the thing he's most proud of. When we talked about the investment that my family made in me, my dad's a big car guy. He's worked in auto engineering, manufacturing his whole life. He grew up in, the 60s, 70s when, the hot rods were the big thing.
Sure.
And he's always wanted to have a Corvette, like a 69 Corvette,
nice.
Specific one he really wants. And I think that maybe someday he still will have it. And, I was long way into my recovery. I'd been in recovery for a few years. And I said, hey, Dad, what are you doing with this Corvette? I mean, I know that you've always really wanted one. Are you going to go ahead and get this Corvette now that you're going to retire? And he says, Casey, you're my Corvette.
That's it. You are the prized possession.
Corvette.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've done FaceTimes with him where he's been in all areas of the country, and he'll pull the coin out and show it to me, and he shows that and shares that with other people with pride.
That's everything to me.
Yeah,
that within itself is everything.
It means a lot.
It means a lot
to me. And so I still today have the same responsibility that I did when I was on the door of that treatment program. When he was signing that check to them to save my life, right? I still have to be committed to this thing, recovery, one day at a time. Everybody starts with one day.
Mm-hmm.
World record for sobriety, 24 hours. I don't know about you, but I slept in just a little bit today because I knew I was going to see you. So you might be a little bit ahead of me.
Awesome. What an honor and privilege it was to have you on the corner today.
Yeah, my pleasure to be here.
Such a
Great.
good man.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Thanks to all that tuned in today. And I'm going to have to put that in my calendar that you're taking 9 years in a few days. All right. Much love to everybody. Have a good day.
Bye, guys.